I hope you guys are ready for the week. But before we get that week started, I wanted to share a little bit about what I've been talking about this week, which is easing that overwhelm by grounding yourself with yourself, right? So when I say grounding, it's like when you finally come to yourself, right? When you feel most like yourself, when you finally hear your thoughts and yourself, right? So we're going to talk and break it down into 3 parts. Part 1 is about why that overwhelm can feel so heavy. Part 2 is how self-trust can lighten the load. And then part 3 is 3 different tools that we can use to quiet that outside noise and reconnect with ourselves. So I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to see if anyone joins. In the meantime, like I said, I hope everyone's having a beautiful weekend, and we're going to get this week started. Hi, how are you? Thank you for joining. Today we're going to be talking about something that I'm sure you felt before, which is when you're feeling super overwhelmed with all these tasks that you have to do. And basically, how do we combat that? Like, how can I go from feeling overwhelmed to now feeling at ease and feeling like I have that control back, right? So I'm going to break it down into 3 parts. I'm going to talk about why that overwhelming feeling can be so heavy. Part 2, I'm going to talk about how self-trust can lighten that load for you. And then part 3 is going to be, I'm going to share 3 different tools that you can use on your own to quiet that outside noise and to try to reconnect back with yourself. So just stay tuned. I'm going to invite a few people to come over here and then we'll get started. Okay, so we're going to start with part 1, which is why that overwhelm can feel so heavy. So again, overwhelm isn't just about having like too much on your plate, right? It's about having too much in your head. So it's almost like when you have so many things in your mind, when you're having that constant scrolling through social media, when you're hearing other people's advice or opinions, right? And then you start comparing yourself to other people, whether that's family, whether that's friends, coworkers, people you know from school, or even strangers that you're seeing online, right? And then that like overwhelming feeling of having to make the right choice every time, that perfect choice, and that constant input from all these different directions just becomes so exhausting, right? So at some point your mind is like on overload and it's like, I just cannot handle anything else. And it's so easy for us to disconnect from ourselves when we're so busy trying to like juggle and like organize all these outside thoughts, right? So the heaviness comes when you're not managing your own thoughts. You start carrying all this weight. You start carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations. Hi, thank you for joining. We're talking about that overwhelming feeling and why it feels so heavy. And then I'm going to share some tools and tips on how you can basically connect back with yourself instead of staying stuck in that overwhelm and that overthinking, right? So again, that heaviness comes when you're just not managing your own thoughts. You're carrying the weight of everyone else's expectations, everyone else's opinions, and then maybe what you see other people doing, right? So that's why even the small decisions can feel paralyzing at times. It's not just what do I want? It starts becoming what will they think about me if I make this decision? What will they think if I choose this? And that's why that overwhelming feeling is so heavy, right? What if I pick the wrong thing? Or what if I choose the wrong career? What if I choose the wrong degree, right? So when you're listening to everyone else, you can't listen to yourself. You're too busy listening to other people. And that silence, that's what makes you disconnect from your own voice, right? That's what makes that overwhelm feel so heavy to you, right? So for part 2, I want to share how that self-trust that you build within yourself can help you lighten that load, feeling like you're overwhelmed and like overthinking all the time, right? So when you start trusting yourself, you stop outsourcing your decisions, right? So when you finally feel comfortable with yourself and with your thoughts, then it's a lot easier to trust those thoughts, right? Instead of having to run to your best friend, or instead of running to, one of your family members. Hi, Crystal. Thank you for coming. We're just talking about that overwhelming feeling that we all get and how we can try to combat that, right? We talked a little bit about why it gets so overwhelming. And when we're constantly scrolling, when we're hearing other people's advice, comparing ourselves, trying to make that perfect choice, that constant input is so exhausting, right? So basically, we want to turn to ourselves instead of other people, instead of social media. We want to turn to ourselves, and we really want to, sure, we can listen and take in information from other people, but you need to find a way to kind of put it through your own filter, right? Hi, Hannah. Thank you for coming today. So when you trust yourself, you stop outsourcing the decisions to everyone around you. And that's what starts lightening the load of that overwhelming feeling, that overthinking feeling. Hi, Harrison. Thank you for joining today. You're not carrying the weight of other people's expectations on top of your own. Because when we carry other people's expectations, it becomes overwhelming. Then we start to overthink all of our decisions. We start to wonder, well, did I make the right decision? Did I choose the right career? Did I choose the right partner? Like, you start questioning everything that you've done. So I want you to think of you lightening the load as decluttering, right? So instead of sorting through 10 different opinions, 10 different voices, you have one clear voice that you want to listen to, and that's yours, right? That instantly brings some peace of mind, because now when you're making decisions, now when you're thinking about things or issues that you may have, you're not having to worry about, oh, well, what will my mom think? Or what will my dad think? What will my best friend think? Let's just focus on, how do I feel, right? What do I think about this? So put yourself first. And then if you feel like you have some type of, like you're hearing yourself finally, then you can start outsourcing, right? So self-trust doesn't mean that you're never going to doubt yourself, because I know I've been there. It just means that you can handle the outcome, right? So again, self-trust doesn't mean that you don't ever doubt yourself. It just means that you can handle the outcome, whether it's good or bad. And that's where that confidence finally starts to grow. So self-trust doesn't remove the challenge, because it's not going to be perfect, right? But it removes that chaos and that super heavy feeling that we get when we're around that challenge and we're almost expecting other people to fix it for us, right? So I would love to hear from you guys. If you want to drop an emoji, if you've ever made a decision that went against something that everyone else thought was good, but it turned out to be fine. So drop a yellow heart if you've ever had to make a decision that kind of went against the grain, right? Went against what other people thought was the norm or the right thing to do, right? So again, drop a yellow heart if you've ever made a decision that went against something that everyone thought was like the norm, everyone thought was like the normal thing to do, but you still did it and it turned out fine. So for me, I've definitely made so many decisions in my life where I felt like, I'm like, damn, did I make the right decision? Did I do the right thing? Did I choose the right thing? And I feel like even when I didn't make the right choice, it still pushed me to trust myself. It still pushed me to just lean on myself and just trust that, okay, maybe it didn't work out this time, but at least I tried, right? So now I want to share with you 3 tools to help quiet that outside noise. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, where you're feeling like you're overthinking things, when you're feeling like you just don't know what else you could do, your brain is like totally fried, you don't know how to make your decisions, things like that. I want to share 3 tools that have helped me when I'm in those situations. So the first one is the one voice pause. So before you decide, take a breath and ask, if no one else had an opinion, what would I choose? So I want you to take a breath and then ask, if no one else had an opinion, what would I do? Right? This helps you kind of discount those outside voices, because it's very hard for us to not discount that, right? Hey, Ashley, how are you? Let me give you a little recap of where I'm at. So today I've been talking about easing that overwhelming feeling that we get by grounding ourselves in self-trust, right? I'm doing good, and you? Happy Sunday. So basically, I'm sharing 3 different parts. Part 1 is why overwhelm feels so heavy. Part 2 is how self-trust can help lighten that load. And then part 3, I'm going to be sharing some tools to help quiet that noise and reconnect with yourself. So for part 1, I was talking about why the overwhelm feels so heavy. And overwhelm isn't just about like those to-do lists, those checklists that we get when we have too much on our plates. It's about having too much on our head, right? So sometimes we have all these things that we're doing and we're so busy, especially moms, and you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And sometimes you don't notice. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you. Sometimes we don't notice like how busy we are and how that affects our minds, right? So think about it. When we're constantly scrolling, when we're hearing other people's advice or opinions, when we're comparing ourselves to other people, when we're trying to make like that perfect choice, right? That constant input that we're getting in our brain can get so exhausting, right? If we're constantly getting all this input, right? We're getting advice from people, opinions from people. We're scrolling on the internet and we're seeing more advice and we're seeing more things. And then we finally come to ourselves and we lay down in bed and we can't even go to sleep, right? Because our mind is so full of all these thoughts. So that heaviness comes when you're not just managing like your own thoughts, but you're managing like all the other thoughts from all the other people, right? You're carrying the weight from other people's expectations too, right? So that's why even small decisions can sometimes, yes, exactly. That's why some decisions I feel like, especially smaller ones, they can feel like paralyzing. Like it's not just like, what do I want? Or what do I need? It becomes like, what will they think if I choose this? Or what if I pick the wrong thing? What if I make the wrong choice? So when you're listening to everyone else, you can't hear yourself, right? And that silence, that's what disconnects us from like our own voice, right? It makes that overwhelm feel super heavy. So I'm curious, Ashley, how do you feel? Like, have you been in that space where you felt like you're unsure of a decision that you have to make because you're just so overwhelmed by all these different decisions that you make every day? I know for me as a mom, sometimes it gets really overwhelming when you have to think about yourself, you know, times where you have to get up, you have to think about your job, you have to think about your kids, their class schedule, activities, and you got to think about your home, and then you got to think about your spouse, and then you got to think about the car, and I got to make sure my car is good, and then let me make sure the business is good, right? Yes, when I choose to walk away from my kid's father, exactly. Yup. That's a big one. That's a big one. I'm proud of you for that too, because it's not easy, and you've been doing your thing. You really have. So the part 2 that I was talking about when you walked in is how self-trust can help lighten that load, right? So when you trust yourself, you stop outsourcing like the decisions that you need to make to everyone around you, right? So thank you. And sometimes I do ask myself, did I make the right decision? No, you definitely did. You definitely did. From the times that we've talked, I think you made the right decision, because at the end of the day, Like, if you're in a toxic relationship and someone is just not giving you what you deserve or what you need, your kids are going to see that too, you know? And as a mom, I think you made the right decision because you're showing your kids, sure, like, they're not going to get to see their dad as you would like them to, but at least you're showing them, like, as a strong woman, like, I'm not allowing this. I'm setting this boundary, and you cannot cross this boundary with me. And you're teaching them that that's how they should be as they grow up. They can set boundaries, and that people need to accept it, right? And respect it. And that's such an important lesson for kids. So I'm proud of you. I mean, that's a really hard thing to do, and you did it. So kudos to you, because that's big. And then I was talking about how, yes, self-trust can lighten that load. And when you stop relying or outsourcing your decisions to everyone around you, it lightens the load because now you're not carrying the expectations on top of your own, right? So now the only expectation that you have to worry about is your own. Instead of you carrying like your mother's expectations, your father's expectations, your spouse's expectations, all these external expectations, when you're trying to make decisions, now you're just only thinking about, okay, what is my expectation? Let me listen to myself and my voice. Then if I need to, I will outsource, right? Then if I feel I still need a second opinion, then you can do that. But at least you went to yourself first, right? So you can think of it kind of like decluttering. You know, when we go in spring, you know, they call it spring cleaning. When we go in our closets and then we get rid of all this crazy stuff that we've been holding on to for months. Hi, Jermaine. Thank you for coming. So think of it as like decluttering. So instead of sorting through 10 different voices or 10 different opinions, you have one clear voice, and that's your own, right? And that instantly brings you peace of mind. Ashley, you said, yes, I have learned to do this in the past 4 months. Yes. Yeah, you've been doing your thing. Oh, no problem. Let me know when you're back, and I'll circle back for you, okay? So self-trust doesn't mean that you'll never doubt yourself, right? It just means that you can handle certain obstacles and certain outcomes, whether they're good or bad, right? So that's where your confidence grows, when you start trusting yourself and your decisions, even if it doesn't necessarily turn out great, right? Hi, thank you for coming. We're talking about how to overcome that overwhelming feeling that we feel sometimes with all of our responsibilities and all these decisions that we have to make on a daily basis, especially when it comes to being a parent, being a student. You know, you have all these different things that you're juggling, work, and then we're expected to like be sane people, right? So again, self-trust doesn't remove the challenge, but it definitely removes like that chaotic feeling around the challenge, right? So I would love for you to drop a yellow heart if you've ever made a decision that went against the norm, that everyone else was like, nah, you shouldn't do it, don't do that, but then it turned out fine, right? So I want you to drop a yellow heart if you ever made a decision that went against what everyone else thought, but it ended up turning out to be something that worked in your favor. So I know for me, that's happened to me for sure. Oh, hey, Ashley. Yeah, I was just saying that drop a yellow heart if you've ever made a decision that went against what everyone else thought was the right thing, or like what you would call the norm, but it turned out to be the best thing for you, right? So for me, a while ago, this was about 7 years ago, I moved to Puerto Rico as an adult, right? Because I'm Puerto Rican, but I lived in the States since I was 9 years old. And I decided I wanted to move back to Puerto Rico. I wanted to feel like, how does it feel being here as an adult? Like, I've always been curious. I've always wanted that experience of living there, because when I would visit, I felt so connected, right? So I lived there for a couple of years, and honestly, even though it was sad to leave, it felt so good, like reconnecting with like my roots. when it was, how do I say this? It's almost like I went back home and like re-energized myself almost. It was like my battery was low and I needed to go there, if that makes sense. But everyone told me it wasn't a good idea. Everyone's like, no, don't move there. Like, you know, the crime and blah, blah, blah. And it was fine. Didn't have any issues. It was a beautiful time was had. And I really enjoyed reconnecting like that. What about you, Ashley? Have you ever made a decision where you felt like it went against other people's opinions, it went against what other people thought was the right thing to do, but it turned out to be a good thing for you? It turned out that you did make that right decision. Yes, moving to Arizona. Aww, I didn't know that. That's so cool. That's a big decision. So I love that. I love how we kind of have that in common. Like, making a move is a big deal, and when you do it, it feels so scary, but then when you finally start settling and you're like, oh my God, I love this. It feels so nice. And then part 3, for me, I want to share with you guys 3 different tools that I have used myself to help quiet that outside noise and reconnect with yourself again, right? So for me, I've done 3 different ones. I'm going to share the first one. So I call it the one voice, right? So before you decide something, take a breath and ask yourself, if no one else had an opinion, what would I do? Yes, for me, it was hard because I had my 3 kids, but it was good because my daughter was properly diagnosed. Oh, I love that. That's so important, dude. I'm not sure if you don't mind me asking, what was your daughter diagnosed with? Because for me, my son, my oldest, he has autism and ADHD. And it took so long for him to get properly diagnosed. It's crazy. It's crazy. They called it a developmental delay for so long. And I had to outsource, pay out of pocket for stuff. It was crazy, but I finally got the diagnosis. SCN1A, it's a gene mutation. Wow, I had no idea. Is this older daughter or one of your babies? But I'm so happy you got that diagnosis. Instead of, because it's so bad when you're sitting there wondering like, what is happening? How can I help my child when I don't know what's happening, right? Yes, my oldest daughter. Wow. I'm so glad you got the answers. Because now with that information, now you can move forward. Now you can make decisions. Now you know what to do. You know what I'm saying? So knowledge is power. It really is. She's 21 and she shouldn't have made it this far. Wow. That's amazing. God bless her. Wow. God bless her for real. That's amazing, Ashley. I'm sure it helped that you're her mom, so I'm sure that made it a whole lot better. So my first method is the one voice method, right? So that's before you decide, you take a breath and you ask yourself, if no one else had an opinion, what would I choose? Yes, it sure does. Exactly. So when you use this method, for me, it really helps me cut through the noise by imagining like my life in that moment without external pressure, right? So even if you don't act on it right away, noticing like your first instinct, like that first thought, really does help, right? So for example, I did this when I was debating whether I want to start a business or not, whether I want to put myself out there on social media. So anytime I have these moments where a decision leads to something that I'm kind of terrified to like move forward with, but I know I have to make a decision for myself, this is a great way for me to do it. So I'll just close my eyes, I'll take a deep breath, and then I'll ask myself, if no one else had an opinion, what would I do right now? What decision would I make if no one else had an opinion, right? So it kind of helps you zone in and really try to listen to like that first instinct, that first thought that pops in your head. Because 9 times out of 10, that's your core. That's your inner you trying to tell you this is what feels right, okay? It's like your intuition in a sense, right? So another method that I use is the past proof list. So I write down 3 moments where I've had to make a tough decision that worked out, right? So this helped to train my brain to see that evidence that yes, I can trust myself. I've done this before, right? So over time, your nervous system starts relaxing because it remembers, yes, I've done this before, right? So your past can help prove to you that you're more capable than your doubt wants you to believe, right? So for me, I've used this in scenarios where I've had to make a decision where, again, it was a tough decision and I was scared to move forward. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I need, hey, Jacksonville, how you doing? So maybe I do need this extra push. Maybe I do need to prove to myself like I'm capable, right? So when you write down 3 moments where you've had to make a tough decision and it worked out, it's almost like you're setting yourself up for success, right? You're telling yourself, I've done this before. I've made it through difficulties, right? I've made hard decisions and they've turned out fine. So why wouldn't I be able to do it now, right? Thank you for all the likes, Ashley. I really appreciate that. And then the last one, this is one of my favorites because sometimes when I have a really hard decision to make, I get very anxious, right? And I start overthinking. So have you guys ever been through that where you have a decision that you have to make and anxiety creeps in and the overthinking creeps in, right? Have you guys ever felt that? Comment a yellow heart if you've ever had to make a tough decision and all of a sudden the brakes come because you're anxious, you're overthinking it, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Right? Yes, Ashley, exactly. So when I get to that point where I'm like super anxious and I feel like overwhelmed from a decision or from the next steps that I need to take in something, I do like a grounding breath and touch exercise. So basically I'll put a hand on my chest and this hand on my tummy, and I'll close my eyes and I'll take 3 slow breaths, and then I'll affirm myself, I've got me, right? So I've got me. I've got me, right? Or you can do another affirmation. You can say, I will make the right decision. The answer is within me, right? So you could take 3 slow breaths and each time say the answer is within me, right? Hey, Chi-Chi, what are you doing here? You're on vacation. That's my sister, y'all. So yeah, so this exercise, when you're doing breath work and when you touch a part of your body at the same time, whether that's your chest. Oh, hey AJ, thank you for coming. Okay. I hope you guys are having an awesome time in PR. They're in Puerto Rico right now and I'm slightly hating a little bit. But basically, Chi-Chi, just to give you a quick little recap, we've been talking about easing that overwhelm that we get, especially when we're like overthinking and have so many different responsibilities, juggling work, school, juggling responsibilities like bills, right? So the first part that I talked about was a little bit about why the overwhelm feels so heavy at times. And a lot of times it's because we have so many things that we're juggling. We're scrolling on social media. We're hearing other people's opinions and advice constantly. We're constantly comparing ourselves to other people and trying to make like that perfect choice. And that constant input can be very exhausting for your mind. And then that's when that overwhelming feeling pops up, right? So when you're listening to like everyone else, it's so hard to hear yourself, and that disconnects you from like your own voice and your own thoughts, and it makes like that overwhelming feeling be super heavy on you, right? So then I talked a little bit about how self-trust can help lighten the load for you. So it's almost like decluttering your mind. So instead of sorting through like 10 different voices, 10 different opinions, you have one clear guide, and that's you, right? So that instantly brings a peace of mind when you stop focusing on other people's voices and those external expectations, and you start thinking about, what do I want? What do I need, right? And then I wanted to share some tools that help quiet that outside noise. So I have 3 tools that I was just sharing. The number one tool that I use, it's usually the first one when I'm thinking about making a decision or taking a step, in whether it's a goal or any decision that I'm making. So before you decide, take a breath and ask, if no one else had an opinion, what would I do right now? So this kind of helps cut through the noise of like imagining your life without that external pressure. So it kind of helps you hone in on, what would I really want, right? Instead of thinking about, what does my parents want? What does my spouse want? What does my friends want, right? Like there's so many people that we care about, and we tend to start thinking about like their expectations too. But it's okay to also do this first. Do like your own expectation first, do your own thoughts first. And then once you have that idea, then go and speak to other people, right? Because then at least you start with something rather than just making decisions based on other people. The second tool that I use is writing down moments in my life where I've made a tough decision and it worked out. So I'll usually write 3 moments at a time. So I'll write down 3 examples of a tough decision that I made and that it ended up working out fine, right? So this kind of helps you build evidence, right? Towards yourself, not against, right? So we want to build ourselves up. So this kind of helps bring evidence, and in your brain, your nervous system tends to like relax, because now it's like remembering, oh, well, I've done this before, so this is safe. I don't need to get super anxious. And then the last one is the tool that I use most when I feel really anxious or overwhelmed, or like I'm super overthinking a decision. So this is when I do like a breath and touch work. So I'll put my hand on my chest and the other hand on my tummy, and I'll take 3 slow breaths, and then I'll do an affirmation that is relevant to whatever it is I'm going through. Whether it's my confidence and I need to kind of boost my confidence to be able to make the decision, then I'll just do 3 slow breaths and I'll say, I've got me. So I'll breathe in deep. I've got me. And I'll do that 3 times. And then, but you can use that in other scenarios as well. If you need to use it to make a decision, you can say, I trust in my decisions. I trust myself. I'm fully capable, right? So there's so many different ways that you can use this. And this helps engage your body so your nervous system calms down, because overwhelm and like overthinking doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your body, right? Your body tends to tense up. Your body tends to react when it's stressed, right? So when you touch your body and you're breathing and you're doing that breath work, you're engaging your nervous system with your mind as well, right? So this touch reminds you that no matter what, you're supported by yourself in that moment. So sorry, Chi-Chi, I know I kind of ran through that. I hope that wasn't like too crazy. But does that make sense? So as usual, I always like to leave everyone with a little bit of homework, or at least if you don't like the word homework, just doing something that you can journal, doing something that you can do outside of the live, right? Something that you could take home with you. So this week, I want you to write a letter to your future self from that inner voice, right? So a way that you can start it could be saying, hey, I know you're feeling ... right? Remind yourself of your strengths and what's really important. So for example, I can say, I chose this topic because I've been feeling very overwhelmed. Oh, we have a visitor. Hi. You can come say hi, but then you gotta go, okay? Because I'm almost done. This is my Josiah. Say hi.
Hi. This is our family.
Okay, puppy. No besito. All right. I'll be up there in 5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Close my door. Love you. Okay, sorry. But just to be transparent, I know. Just to be transparent, I chose this topic because I feel like with how busy everyone's lives get, it's so easy to disconnect from ourselves, right? So I chose these topics because this is something that I really am drawn to really connect with myself and to really try to, even though we're busy and we have so many things going on around us, I really want to help people connect to themselves and disconnect from all the outside worries. Oh, it's all good, Mama. Don't worry. I'm going to post this video, this recording on my YouTube channel. So y'all could watch it over there after the fact. But okay, so anyway, sorry. So you can start with, hey, I know you've been feeling overwhelmed, but just remember that you're strong. Just remember that you're confident. Just remember that you've made tough decisions and you've done fine. Remember that you've reached your goals, right? Remember that you still have goals, right? Remember that what's important to you is what drives you, right? So if family is important to you, if honesty is important to you, if communication is important to you, then make those your core and make decisions based on that, right? And then again, this doesn't need to be an essay. It could be a super short letter. It could be on an index card, okay? So you can keep it short, powerful, and just let it come from you, right? So before I close, I'm curious, when was a time that you trusted yourself and it paid off? So when was a time that you trusted yourself and it paid off? So for me, there's been so many times, but more recently, I feel like putting myself out there, and I know I say this a lot on social media because it's always been such a scary thing for me, and I still get nervous. Like every time I go live, I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, how do I look? Like, is my hair okay? There's so many things that you start thinking, right? Like, oh my God, look, this little hair is sticking up. Someone's gonna notice it, right? Like, it's so silly. Like, no one's thinking about that. But I trusted myself to do it, and it's been fine. Kiara said, I trusted myself to keep going with my bachelor's, and I finished. Yes, you sure did. You sure did. And what was your GPA again? Can you remind me of your GPA? Because I think I forgot. Hey, Joseph. Thank you for coming. Summa cum what? Egumi? Yeah. That's my sister, y'all. She did her thing. Yup. So it's funny because you not only reached that goal, but you surpassed that goal, right? Because your goal was to finish your degree. But you finished it, and you finished it well. Hey, boo. I hope you're feeling okay. I hope your arm isn't too sore from the bowling. So before we go, again, I just want to remind you that I want you to trust yourself to choose your next step, right? Even if you can't see all those next steps, I want you to take one step at a time. And I want you to use those tools that I shared with you, right? Use those tools to kind of reconnect with yourself and let go of all that outside noise and let go of that overwhelming feeling, right? So I want to share with you guys a little bit about what's coming next week. So next week, we're talking about something that I feel really passionate about, which is talking about identity over titles, right? Because at the end of the day, we are more than our jobs. We're more than our careers. We're more than our achievements. We're more than any label that we've been given, right? So your worth should never be tied to what you do. It's who you are. Your worth is in who you are, not in what you do, not in what you do for other people. So I want to unpack this, and I'm actually going to be going live with one of my really good friends. Her name is Crystal, and she is an entrepreneur. She works in network marketing, and she is also a mom. So it's going to be very interesting for us to kind of talk about how all these titles and all of these achievements, right, and all these things that we've done through our lives, how it's affected the way we feel about ourselves. Okay, Gabi said investing time and money on Gabi's private classes, and it paid off by getting chosen for CT. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Oh, thank you, Joseph. So again, we'll be going live on Friday instead, because that's when she's available. So it'll be Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And same as today, it's going to be ended up posted on my YouTube channel. That way, if anybody misses the live, you can always catch the recap. And if you don't want to hear the intro, or if you want to hear it in 2x speed, that's good, because I know I do that a lot with podcasts. So again, we're going to be talking about identity over titles, because you're more than what you do. And that's going to be on Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Hey, beautiful. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry, I'm literally about to leave. But if you want to catch the replay, just go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, and I'll post it there. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Thank you for the support. I love you guys. Chi-Chi, I hope you have an awesome vacation. AJ, I hope you're having a good time, eating some good food. And tell Bad Bunny I said hi. Please let him know that I said hi, and that I'm really happy and proud for what he's doing at the island. Just in case you meet him while you're there, you know. Sorry I came in late. I'm frying chicken. Hey, food is important. Go ahead, fry that chicken. It's all good. As long as I can have a piece. No. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. So again, I'll see you guys live on Friday instead at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be sharing up some updates anyways, and I'll be sharing like a little flyer after this for that. No, thank you for coming, Ashley. I appreciate it. Your energy is always appreciated. Thank you guys so much. Love y'all. Have a good rest of the weekend. I'm so proud of you and all that you have accomplished. Thank you so much, boo. You too, for real. Thank y'all so much. Have a good night. Bye.